Hi, this is Paint Girly with Time to Be Creative, and today I'm going to do a video on my favorite pastime, coloring. I'm going to call this video Coloring 101 Part 1, and we'll see how far we get. I only have about a half an hour on my iPad, so I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. This is my second go of it today. My other video I misspoke a couple of times, and well, we're just going to have a fresh start. So I've had a few friends request that I show them how I color and how I go about a coloring project, but distance doesn't allow us to get together for personal one-on-one, so I told them I'd do a video. So I just want to share with you some things that I've learned over the last couple of years. I've always loved to color. As a kid, I colored, of course, with crayons, and even as an adult. And then a few years ago, when the adult coloring craze really kicked in, and I really began coloring on a regular basis at that time, I switched over to color pencils, and there is a learning curve there. So I'm going to share with you today some of the things I learned about color pencils, and after that I'll do a little sample and we'll get started. My first colored pencils that I bought and purchased from, I believe I got them at a craft shop like an A.C. Moore or Michaels, and I went with Prismacolor, which I did a little bit of research, and of course that was the popular brand, Prismacolor. And my budget wasn't very large, and so I went with their Verithin color pencils, which I thought was working very well for me. And as I continued to do a little more research and read up a little bit more about the Verithin pencils, I discovered that they were mostly for drawing and sketching, not coloring and blending. You want a softer core for that. And so I went back to my craft store and I purchased, again, Prismacolor, but I purchased their Scholar pencils. Now, it's a nice pencil, and if you have a limited budget, as many of us do, that's a good place to start. You can blend with them. I found that coloring with them and blending with a blender pencil, you can buy a colorless pencil. This is also a Prismacolor brand, and it looks like this, just like a regular wood tone. And the point, the core, it has no color in it. And when you lay your color down, then you just scrub back over it, and that breaks down the fibers of the paper and blends the color pencil for you. As I've come to learn, many artists and colorists don't use any kind of a blender. You can also use a liquid blender like a mineral spirit. Some people use baby oil. You can find all this stuff online. About 5 years ago, I wrote an article for Hub Pages about coloring, and I called that Coloring is Not Just for Kids. And in there I went through some different techniques and how people color and how they blend their colors. And I did a little experimenting with some mineral spirits. And I've used that recently as well. But I'm trying to teach myself how to color just and blend just with the pencil itself. And believe me, I have a lot to learn. So, like I said, I had some Scholar Prismacolor pencils, and they worked well for me. But as I continued in my passion to color, I tried the Premier color pencils also by Prismacolor. And that's where I've landed. They are more expensive than the other two styles of pencil that Prismacolor offers. I'm sure they offer a watercolor too, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about straight color pencils. And but they're not outrageously expensive, and you can use a coupon like at your Michaels or your AC Moore. You can even get Prismacolors at very reasonable at Walmart. Of course, there you can't use the coupon. And the smaller sets, you don't have a wide variety of color. But if you want to get started to see if you like to color, and you can do it, I would recommend that you invest in the Premier Prismacolor pencils. And this is what they look like. Let me see if I can get that. Oh no, that's an old version that someone gave me. A friend. Okay, here we go. We've got Prismacolor, and it says right on there, Premier. This is your dark purple. And then it has Prismacolor 931. They all have a number attached. Okay. There's also a brand called Faber-Castell, and they're more expensive, and they're a very nice pencil. I have a small set of those that my son gave me for a birthday, and I'm just kind of used to the Prismacolors, and I have a lot more variety in colors with those, so I've just stuck with those. There's also a brand called Derwent, and I think they're called Intense. I have not tried these, and I think they're a little more on the pricier side, but they're supposed to be a very nice pencil too. So, you may know some friends who have tried some of these, or you could definitely find some information online. But for my videos, I'm going to be using the Prismacolors, and I'll show you what I have in those in a little bit. My goal as a colorist is to be able to color and get really good coverage and blending with just the colored pencils to a finish that I like. And you may think, as some of my friends do, that my coloring is very nice. But it's not to the degree that I want it to be. I still want to improve, and there still is so much to learn between contrasting, blending, highlighting, all those things. I'm just going to show you a few problems with my coloring. This one's probably not as easy to see as like, for instance, this is in a book called The Look. I love this book. I love to color people. I love to color faces. And you'll see on the hat here where I've not blended very well. And you can still see some of the light white color of the coloring page through there, through the color pencil. And you can see some of my strokes. Some of the shading, it's not too bad here, but like right through the necklace, the back of her dress, her dress behind the necklace area. See, that should be blended out where you can't see that line of darkness. It should all fade into the color and blend seamlessly. So when you look at it, your eye is not drawn to that dark orange shadow, really, behind the necklace. Okay, now you may like the way that looks and that heavier handed contrasting. It's your coloring. Color the way that you want. But for me, I'm working to try to blend better. This is a new book for me. I just got it a couple of days ago. This one's from Korea. It's called Momo Girls. It's a poem book. It's all in Korean. And the vendor I got it from she has an Etsy shop, and she calls herself Cool Color Book. And she has a lot of really neat looking coloring books. But this one a friend received And she streams live on Ustream and has over 900 YouTube videos, and she does a lot of things, coloring, mixed media, all kinds of stuff. She's an artist, and her name is Dee Dee Willingham, and she also goes by Inkwell or sometimes Inkywell. I'm not sure. On Instagram she may be Inkywell. But she does some amazing things, and she got this Momo book, so of course then I had to have it. So I just started coloring this little girl, and you can see I think her hair's pretty good. It's real, you know, it's pretty smooth, but see, when you look at the cat, you can see almost kind of like a scratchiness and an unfinished. It's not as smooth, so I still have some work to do on the cat. And then, of course, I flip around and I do a little bit here, a little bit there. I started on this gal, and you can see that her skin is a little more of the lines you can see, and a little more of my strokes, and kind of grainy. It's not as smooth as I would like it to be. Now, oops, sorry. I'm just recording with my iPad, and of course I just whacked it. This book is probably my favorite. It's Serene, and it's by a Nicholas Chandrolinata. I don't know how to say it. He's from Indonesia. He's very talented. And you can see on this color piece, you can still see some of the lines. But like here, I blended a little better. The flowers I'm doing a little better. And I don't want to eat up all my time. My iPad only gives me about a half an hour. I think I probably already said that. But this is one of my favorite. And I painted the background with acrylic paint and then put in the sky. But we can talk more about that as we progress in the video. But this one is not quite as scratchy looking as those first ones I showed you. Okay, so we're just going to get started and color a little bit, and then I'll continue with some other videos and we'll do some other coloring projects. But to get started, what you want to do is get yourself some colored pencils. You decide how much you need to be able to spend and what you want to start with. But like I said, you can get a small set of Prismacolor pencils. I think at your craft store with a coupon, you could probably do pretty well. You can get them on Amazon. I think their first set starts 12 pencils, and they go up to 150. So you want to make sure that you have a pencil sharpener. I've been using this one my daughter recommended to me. I don't know if you see that, Moped. M-O-P-E-D. I found it. I don't know if you can really see that. It's not focusing. I found them on Amazon. I got 3 for about $10. And this has been working pretty well for me. I like to have a fluffy brush available. You can use an old makeup brush. You just need to make sure that it's clean, or like a mop brush. And that's for when you're coloring. If you have any crumbs on the surface, you can just brush those away. You don't want to use your hand because the pressure of your hand can smear that lead and do some damage to your project. And gosh, I think that's about it. You might want to have a piece of plain paper nearby to test colors on. Or if you're a little anal like I am, you could make yourself a color chart with all the different colors of whatever brand pencil you decide to use. And that's what I did here, so I can see my colors very clearly and I know what I want to use. But that might be a little over the top for you. Okay, so I've just pulled out if I can find it now, I just pulled out a simple coloring project. I have this Creative Expression Splash and Color book. So I just pulled out one of the pictures from this book. We're going to do a couple of petals, and maybe we'll do the center. I'm just watching my time here on my iPad. I like to color with my paper on top of the book or a little bit cushioned, not on a completely hard surface. If you're going to use colored pencil and you say I'm just going to color this way, my table underneath is just like a work table. It has a little bit of a grain to it. And I could possibly get that indentation from the grain on my tabletop. It would transfer onto my coloring page. I don't want that. So I usually either color in the color books that I'm working in, or like this book, it's easily to remove it, and I just put it on top of the book itself, and that kind of cushions the paper for me. So I'm not picking up any extra texture that I don't want. Usually when I color flowers, or really anything, a sweater, their hair, even their eyes, I like to pick 3 colors that go from lightest to darkest. Sometimes I'll find that I need to add a 4th color to add more of a contrast. And sometimes I add a 5th color, which would be white, to do some highlighting. But right now we're going to start with 3 colors. I have my orange of my Prisma Premier Color pencil, and that's number 918. The colors are hard to, the names and numbers are hard to see because they're in gold. The second color I'm going to use is the Pale Vermilion, and that's number 921. And then we're going to go with the Crimson Red, which is 924. Now I have sharpened these. I find that if you have a nice sharp point, your coverage can be a lot more successful than a dull point. So I've done a couple of petals here, and you're going to use the lightest stroke you can possibly use. Hold your pencil however you think is comfortable. If you hold it back further, you have less pressure at the point, at the tip. So if you are someone like me who struggles with coloring lightly, you want to hold your pencil back a little further. You don't want to hold it up like this, because you're going to have a lot of pressure on that tip, and you're going to get a lot more pigment on your paper than what you want, especially for your first coat. You're going to lay down your color. So we're just going to base coat these first couple of petals. We're going to use the lightest stroke that we could use. Most recommend that you color in small circles to cover the surface area. And I guess that works best. And this is almost no pressure at all. You're just going to put your base color in there. Like I said, I'm using this number 918, which is orange. And I'm not trying to get any variety or intensity of the color. I'm just filling in that white space. I do tend to go back and forth instead of in circles. These are all things that I'm working on, and I am holding this pencil back a little further than might be comfortable for you, but it really does help me not press as heavily. And I just realized I wanted to bring my iPad camera down a little bit so you can see better what I'm doing. So let me just quick do that. I'm sorry if you can hear my husband outside. I told him I was recording, but he's out there chatting with a neighbor. All right, let me come in and do, let's see, one more petal over here. So again, we're just doing round circular strokes, hardly any pressure, and you see you get plenty of color that comes off that pencil. All right. And I'll come out and do this one. Now, if you're a person who likes to see results quickly, coloring with pencils is probably not for you, because coloring with pencil is a lot of different layers and it just takes a lot of time. Next, we're coming in with the pale vermilion. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. And that's 921. And now I want the darker color in towards the center of the flower. So I'm coming back in here with the second color that I chose, and we're going to start closest to the center of the flower, and we're going to do kind of the same stroke, small circles. And on a petal like this, I would say you want to come up not quite half, and you're just deepening that color. And you can see just a little tiny variance, but that's what we want. I'll come into this petal here. Now these have these little lines here, so I tend to go up the side of the petal, not out as far in the center, and back up the other edge. And I'm still using very light strokes, and you can see I'm holding that pencil back. I'm not gripping it like if you were writing a letter or a store list. I'm holding the pencil back, starting closest to the center of the flower, and I'm just putting on another layer of pencil in my second shade, which for this is the pale vermilion. You don't see much of a difference, but that's okay, because that's what we want to do. We want to build up the color. Now I'm going to come back in with that orange, and I'm going to start back where my vermilion, and I'm just coloring over top of it, and I'm coloring back all the way out to the edge of that flower again. And what I'm doing is I'm adding another layer of color. Still coloring small circles, but I'm blending the vermilion in with the orange. And it's very subtle. Now I'm going to come in with the darker color that we chose, which is the crimson red. And you can see this one's really small, but I don't throw them out. I use them until I can't sharpen them any further. Because I just don't want to throw out my pencils until I get every last little bit. Now when I color, I usually spin this all around and do all kinds of things. I'm trying to be good while I'm on camera here. I think I'm about at the end of my time, so I think I'm going to need to speed up here. So I want to just come and again, light strokes. I'm not going to come out as far this time. And for this one, I'm going to follow underneath this part of the flower petal there, because that's where a shadow would be. Let me see if I can quickly come over here and do this one. I have a feeling my iPad's going to turn off on me in a little bit. Again, soft pressure. I'm not gripping up on that pencil. I'm kind of holding it back. And then I'm going to come back in with my orange again. And I'm coloring back over top of that crimson red. Small circles. Now you can still see some of the white page through, but this one is starting to come together a little bit better. Now a lot of people blend with a white pencil, And this is 930. I lost me there on the camera. There we go. This is 938. And you can always do some white on the tip of your flower. And you can also just lightly, again, you're just putting a light coat of white over top of those colors. And if you compare those two, I hope you can see it well enough. This one here looks a little more blended than this one. And then you just keep continuing and repeating that process until you get the intensity of what you like. So I can come back in here and add again another coat, another layer. I can also go with a darker, this is a Tuscan Red, and this is 937. So I can come in here again, light strokes. I'm going to keep that close to those other petals because that's where the color would be more intense. And it's very subtle as you're building up your color. If you push very hard, the waxiness of your pencil will get on your paper, and then your ability to blend your color disappears. I'm going to come back in with my orange again now, starting all the way at the back, just coloring over that Tuscan Red that we just added. And as I color, I try to pay attention to the little white spots in my paper. Now I have some crumbs there from the pencil, so I'm just going to brush those away. And hopefully you can see the difference between those two petals. The petal that, this one here, I didn't put the Tuscan Red on, and I didn't blend that as much on this petal here. So that's really just the basics of how I begin to color. When I do Coloring 101 Part 2, I think we'll actually start doing some skin of one of the figures in one of my books. I hope this was helpful. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.